are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, August 26th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. If you want to donate to the show, go to the $ icon in the chat. And this is for Super Chats, and when you donate to the show, I'll see your Super Chat, I'll highlight it in the broadcast, and it just makes the broadcast more lively between me and you guys, and that's really what it's all about. And also, as always, the other alternative way to help out the show is to go to the link, which is gsmcpodcast.net, and we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, and I hope everybody's doing well. I know there was no show on Friday, of course. It's been a interesting couple of weeks for me, so I apologize for that, but back again, and still trying to get over this. My allergies have just been kicking my rear end recently, but we're back. And we're here to talk about some football. The games from over the weekend, we'll get into that. We'll also talk about a major injury for the Dallas Cowboys, DaRon Bland. He'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Suffered a stress fracture. So that's a key player on the Cowboys defense that's going to be out. So we'll get into that. I'll also talk about Trey Lance and his final preseason game performance. I mean, we'll get into a little bit of that in the first segment, but I'll talk about that as well. We'll also get into talking about some extensions and also some injury news as well. We'll get into talking about the recent Hard Knocks episode from last week. I was supposed to recap it on Friday, but since no show, we'll do it today. And I'll also talk about the Panthers and Bryce Young as well. He actually made his preseason debut this past weekend, so we'll talk about that as well. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the games from this weekend. Now, we had preseason, but we also had week 0 of college football. So I did actually watch the Georgia Tech-Florida State game. And last year, of course, Florida State, they go undefeated, but they didn't make it into the college football playoff. Now, they ended up losing to Georgia, of course, in their bowl game. But, Florida State, a lot of people said they should have made it. And it's because of course, their quarterback, Jordan Travis, going down. That was, a reason why they didn't make it, despite going undefeated. But now coming into this season, you have DJ Uiagalelei. I hope I said that correctly. I know, he was with Clemson, and last year was with Oregon State. Now he's with Florida State. And, Florida State's trying to prove something, get off to a good start. And, going into the game, they were ranked number 10 in the country. And they end up losing to Georgia Tech. And this game actually got off to a fast start. Florida State goes right down the field. They score a touchdown. And they even went for the 2-point conversion as well. And I was like, okay, that's the kind of start you want to get off to. But then Georgia Tech answered right back. They got a touchdown. They didn't go for two. They went on a 6-play, 79-yard drive. So the score was 8-7. Florida State kicked a field goal to make it 11-7. Georgia Tech scored a touchdown with about 3 minutes left in the first half to put themselves up by 3. But then Florida State makes a 59-yard field goal as time expires. So it ends up being tied going into the half. Ryan Fitzgerald, the kicker for Florida State. And then both teams went scoreless in the third quarter. Georgia Tech went up by 7. Another rushing touchdown by their quarterback. The running back, Jamal Haynes. 11 carries for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. But then Florida State ties the game. And then, as time's expiring, we thought, are we going to see an overtime with this game? That's not the case. Georgia Tech makes a 44-yard field goal to win the game. And, yeah, they pulled off the upset. And as Joe Tessitore said on the broadcast, college football is back, or welcome back to college football, something along the lines of that. But that was a tough game for Florida State, and they got games on their schedule. I mean, they play Miami, who's ranked 19th currently. They got Notre Dame on the schedule, SMU. This is a big loss for them. And DJ, looking at his stats, 19 to 27, 193 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He doesn't seem like he we could see a quarterback change. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that if, he continues to play like that. I mean, a lot of this game, there was a lot of running plays, and anytime DJ, would air it out, it was an inaccurate pass. Really did not play well in this game. So that's tough. And I thought Florida State's defense, played well at certain points in the game. I mean, I think, Georgia Tech actually ran for a bunch of yards too. What did they end up finishing with? They ended up finishing with almost 200 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So Florida State's going to have to, clean that up. But yeah, both quarterbacks, like I said, DJ, 19 to 27, 193 yards. And then Georgia Tech's quarterback, Haynes King. That's why I thought he scored the 2 rushing touchdowns, because he's got the same first name as, Jamal Haynes has, he has the same first name as Jamal Haynes' last name. But yeah, King went 11 to 16 for 146 yards. So it's not like both quarterbacks were lighting up the stat sheet. Both teams were running the football. Florida State ended up finishing with 98 yards on the ground. You had a touchdown from Roydell Williams and also Lawrence to a Philly. So yeah, that was a big loss for Florida State. Not the kind of start they wanted to get off to. And then you also had Montana State pulling off the upset. They were a 14-point underdog, and they beat New Mexico at home, 35-31. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. So that was impressive by them. Also, Nevada, who's a 28-point underdog, they almost pulled off the upset against SMU. But SMU outscored them 19-7 in the second half. So we almost had a ton of upsets. You had Norfolk State. They were a 13-point underdog. They ended up losing by a point. But, yeah, some good games over the weekend in college football. And to take an early look at what's on the docket for week 1, there are some very good games. Clemson and Georgia. Miami and Florida. Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Those are, there are some good games on the schedule. And also, next Sunday you have USC and LSU. So there are some good games on that schedule. So, but yeah, the Florida State game. That was probably, that was the game that I really focused on, just because that was going into the weekend. That was the biggest matchup. But yeah, there were some good games. And then as for the preseason, there was a few games yesterday. Didn't really watch a ton of preseason. I did see, we'll talk about Trey Lance's performance. I did watch the Giant game. Looking at the Steelers and the Lions game. We're trying to figure out, who's going to end up being the starting quarterback between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And Russell Wilson went 2 for 2 for 26 yards. Justin Fields went 3 for 4 for 40 yards. So, we'll see when a decision is going to come soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if they named Justin Fields a starter. Now, Russell Wilson didn't really play as much as Fields. But if the Steelers make that move and start Fields, that would not surprise me at all. Also, watching the games yesterday, I know some people were impressed by the performance of Zach Wilson, because he ended up going 16 to 25 for 251 yards and 2 touchdowns. Made some nice throws, but look, again, it's preseason. But you know what? It's nice to see him go out there and build up some confidence in himself and play well, even if it is a preseason game. But the other thing I'll say, too, from yesterday, Drake May looked good. Drake May looked good. And Jacoby Brissett ended up leaving the game last night against the Commanders with I believe it was a shoulder injury. And they put Drake May in. Drake May does look like the guy for the Patriots. Now, again, it's preseason, but, I've said it all along. The rookie quarterbacks, they've looked good this preseason. No one's really embarrassed themselves. So, now we get to the regular season. Let's see how they do. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the college football games from this weekend, as well as the games, the preseason games. Let me know about some of the performances, some of your takeaways. Let me know in the comments. So, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about DaRon Bland's injury for the Cowboys. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about DaRon Bland's injury for the Dallas Cowboys and just kind of, talk about the impact of that. So, he sustained a stress fracture in his foot, scheduled to undergo surgery, and he's expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He was experiencing some discomfort on Wednesday, and imaging revealed that it was indeed a fracture. So he's going to be out, and it's a devastating blow to this defense. Last year, 14 interceptions. Well, not last year, but 14 interceptions over his first 2 NFL seasons, and he had a league best 9 interceptions in 2023. And he said, and when it came to the pick sixes, that's really what I wanted to bring up. He set an NFL record by returning 5 of those for touchdowns. An impressive year by him. And, the Cowboys defense needed that because you had Trayvon Diggs, go down last year. He didn't play at all because he tore his ACL. But now you get Diggs back, and now you lose DaRon Bland for an extended period of time. Now, Bland's not going to be out for the whole season, but losing a guy like him is, that's devastating for this defense, for this Cowboys team. And, it was going to be Bland and Trayvon Diggs as their 2 top corners. Now, they have a 5th-round pick, Kalen Carson, and Andrew Booth, who was acquired via trade. Those are the potential replacements for DaRon Bland. That's not what you want. And especially, going into this week 1 matchup against the Browns where, you got Amari Cooper and they brought in Jerry Jeudy. There's going to be some tough receivers that you're going to have to go up against in this game coming up. I know, some people have their, opinions on Jerry Jeudy, and, like I said, I've talked about him and how we're expecting more out of him coming out of college. But still, I still think he's a threat. Especially coming in and, he's not the number 1 receiver. Amari Cooper is. And, Amari Cooper going up against his former team, that's going to be fun to watch. So that should be a very interesting game. That's one of the best games of the weekend next week is Browns-Cowboys. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But, that's just losing DaRon Bland is going to hurt that defense. Now, I don't think it's going to be, where they're just going to be totally off. But that's a key piece on your defense, and it's going to be hard to replace. So Cowboys are just going to have to piece it together until he comes back. And what's unfortunate for them is they could have went out if this player didn't get signed. If Stephon Gilmore didn't end up signing with the Vikings, they could have signed him. But there's some other veteran free agents that maybe they could go after, because I think that's something they could potentially do, is bring in a veteran. Because I know he's not in his prime, but Patrick Peterson is still unsigned. You could bring him in on a cheap deal until DaRon Bland comes back. 34 years old, but still remains unsigned. But maybe that's someone you potentially bring in. They probably will bring in a veteran. I would think they're going to do that. But that's just me. But I also wanted to get into Trey Lance's performance over the weekend, because I know that was making news. Now, he had 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles. Now, he didn't lose both of them, but that was rough. And I think that also makes it more... I don't want to overreact, because, again, it is a preseason game, but 5 interceptions in a preseason game is rough. But I think that also makes it a little bit more imperative to try to get Dak done, get him signed for a long-term extension. Because, look, Cooper Rush is a backup quarterback. And I did bring up, like, okay, maybe, they keep Trey Lance around if Dak ends up walking. But Trey Lance is going to do that. Then, I'm out on that. But then again, you could say, well, the backups were in, but I don't know. It's just, that's tough to do. And he did that. So, he could learn from it. And not to say, like, I'll bring up a positive, too. You see the ability, because he had, I think it was like a 45-yard rushing touchdown. So you see there's ability there. But, again, that doesn't eliminate the 5 picks that he ended up throwing. Yeah, so he finished 33 of 49, 323 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions. He had 90 yards rushing and a 46-yard touchdown run. So, again, you see the ability, being able to take off with the ball. But, yeah, the 5 picks, yeah, you can't have that. So, again, I don't want to overreact, but you also got to be like, that's not good. So, that's just something else to think about as well. But, yeah, there's a lot of people that are just not optimistic about the Cowboys going into the year. And, you got players that are looking for new contracts. Like Dak, obviously, is going to be there week 1. But, CeeDee Lamb, his status is, still up in the air. But, Adam Schefter said it. CeeDee Lamb is not missing week 1. There's no way he's missing week 1. I'd be surprised. But if that ends up happening, if this leaks into the regular season and he doesn't play, if he's missing actual games, that's really going to affect the Cowboys. Because you look at their depth outside of CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, you got Brandon Cooks, but Brandon Cooks is, he's past his prime. Still a productive receiver, don't get me wrong, but you got Brandon Cooks. But then after that, it's, who else do you got? You got Jacob Ferguson. Now, I just mean in terms of receivers. You got Jacob Ferguson, who's a decent tight end, and, I speak very highly on the Cowboys and them always having a good tight end each and every year. Whether it's Jason Witten or Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin. Now, I only say Blake Jarwin because every time he played against the Giants, he would score a touchdown. And, he had that 3-touchdown game, several years ago now, which is, crazy to think how fast time flies. That's really a thing of the past. But now you have Jacob Ferguson. They always seem to have good tight ends. But when you look at their receivers, who's going to step up? They like Kevontae Turpin, but they're kind of thin there. And that's really what the problem is for this Cowboys team is going into the season, is their depth. Because if you start losing guys and guys are holding out like CeeDee Lamb is, who's going to step up? Is that depth going to be able to step up and keep them sustainable until they get their full team back? They're able to agree to a long-term extension with CeeDee Lamb. When they get DaRon Bland back, that's why they might have to go out and, bring in a veteran cornerback. Maybe try to get a veteran receiver. These are things that could be coming. I mean, if CeeDee Lamb comes back, look, you agree to an extension with him, and he comes back, that's solved. But DaRon Bland's different. You got to wait because he's hurt. So it's going to be interesting to see, what happens. But also, what are we expecting out of this running game? Like, that's something that could be an issue for the Cowboys is their running game, because you have all these running backs, but who's going to step up and be the lead guy? You don't have Tony Pollard anymore. You bring back Zeke. But Zeke is not the same player. He's not. I think, in short yardage situations, he can be productive. He can get you those rushing touchdowns in fantasy. But in terms of being the lead back for the Cowboys, I just don't see it. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about the Cowboys, the current state of the Cowboys right now. Because there's a lot going on with them. When it comes to the contracts, and now you got one of their top corners getting hurt. And, look, just because they're going into this game against the Browns and all this is going on, that they got no shot, I think this is a game they could definitely win, of course. But, that being at home, the Browns, and they got a really good defense, it's going to be a tough game. But on the other side, you got a quarterback who's coming back from injury. The Cowboys' defense could take advantage of that, despite what's going on with, obviously, like I said, DaRon Bland getting hurt, and we'll see. But let me know what you guys think, though, on the Cowboys. And before we go to break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Go to the Super Chat icon, and by helping out the show, your comment will get highlighted. It'll be a Super Chat. I'll acknowledge it during the live broadcast, and it just makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. And, of course, the alternative way to help out the show is going to the link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Like I said, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. It helps us out a ton as we give you guys content throughout the week. So when we come back from our next break, we will then discuss, some trades, extensions, also some injury updates as well. So that is what we will do when we come back from our next break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about some of the recent trades, extensions, as well as some injury news as well. So CBS's Instagram, they did post a quote from Jerry Jones about the possibility of stepping down as the Cowboys GM, and this is what he said. There's nobody that could bleeping come in here and do all the contracts and be a better GM any better than I can. So it's probably not something Cowboys fans want to hear. I'm assuming that'll send a certain group of Cowboys fans in an uproar because, some of them do point to Jerry Jones as, being the problem. And that's something that, like I said, a certain group of Cowboy fans probably don't want to hear, that he's probably not interested in stepping down anytime soon. So, let's get into the trades and other news, extensions and all that. So this is what I was going to cover on Friday, but obviously we didn't have a show. So, that's a graphic from the preseason matchups from Thursday. I actually didn't bring up Anthony Richardson's performance. I wanted to get into that, but again, spent so much time on college football. But we'll touch upon it over the course of the next few segments here. But one of the trades was the Eagles acquiring Jahan Dotson from the Commanders. So the Commanders traded him and a 2025 fifth-round pick, to the Eagles. And in return, the Commanders received a 2025 third-round pick and two 2025 seventh-round picks. Jahan Dotson was a former number one draft choice by the Commanders. Not overall, but, you guys know what I mean. In both 2020, over the course of the 2 years that he was with the Commanders, over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. And, dealt with the quarterback carousel in Washington. You had Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke last year with Sam Howell. But then, you got Jaden Daniels, who, again, one of the rookie quarterbacks that has played well in the preseason. It looked like he was going to be a major factor in that offense, but that was not the case. He ended up getting traded to the Eagles, and, that sent people, a certain group of people in an uproar, because it's like, why are you trading him within the division? Now, these are his stats from last year. But, now he goes to a Philly offense, which is just loaded from top to bottom. The offensive line, the two receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now he steps in as that third guy, because that's kind of what they were looking for. Because they had Devontae Parker, and he retired. They also brought in John Ross as well. But, Jahan Dotson stepping in as a number 3 wide receiver, that's not bad. And you also got Dallas Goedert, and, of course, Saquon Barkley is in the fold. And we got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. And we're going to see, this offense on full display next Friday when they take on the Packers. That is going to be, next weekend, you got the AFC Championship game rematch, and then you got the Eagles and the Packers the next day, college football, and then NFL Sunday plus Jets 49ers on Monday. It's going to be a great weekend of football. It really is. But I think this was a good move for the Eagles. Again, he's your number 3 receiver. But it does make you wonder why the Commanders would trade within the division, but that's what they decided to do. And Jahan Dotson is now a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll get into some other news as well. So Creed Humphrey of the Chiefs, he signed a 4-year extension worth $72 million, $50 million guaranteed. He becomes the highest paid center in NFL history. He's 25 years old. He was a second-round pick in the 2021 draft, and he was a part of that revamping of the offensive line for the Chiefs because, the year before in the Super Bowl, Mahomes was running for his life, and, they went out and they got Creed Humphrey. I think they also drafted another lineman that year as well, but, they signed, 2 new tackles. Oh, yeah, they also brought in Joe Tooney that season. They really did a great job revamping the offensive line. And what ended up happening? Now, they made it back to the AFC Championship game, lost to the Bengals, but what's happened? 2 straight Super Bowls for the Chiefs. And there are some concerns with the Chiefs' offensive line going into the season. I know that, from some of the programs that I've been watching, there's some questions about that offensive line. So we'll see, going against the Ravens and their defense and how good that was last year, we'll get a close look at that. But, that's a good move by the Chiefs, keeping one of their key pieces on the offensive line. Also, the Falcons, they continue to be busy. They gave one of their top corner, A.J. Terrell, an extension of 4-year, $81 million extension. $65.8 million is the largest guarantee ever given to a cornerback on a 4-year deal. And he's making $20.2 $2.25 million, making him the second highest paid corner in the NFL behind only Jair Alexander. So, they've been busy with, obviously paying Kirk Cousins this offseason. They also, recently traded for Matthew Judon and signed Justin Simmons. So, the Falcons, they're hoping for a good season. And I think they're going to have one. If Kirk Cousins plays well, I don't think there's any reason to believe otherwise. But that's just me. 25 years old. He was the 16th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft by the Falcons. Second team All-Pro in 2021. And he's regarded as one of the top corners in the NFL. But yeah, this is a good move for them. And yeah, like I said, the Falcons have been busy. Now, I also wanted to get into, some other moves that around the league. And one of them was, an injury update. So, Nick Chubb will miss the first 4 games of the season, which I think most people expected. He was put on the PUP. Well, he's been on the PUP list, but was not activated, so he's going to miss the first 4 games. So I know we did talk about the Browns-Cowboys game a little bit in the last segment. So that's at least one player they're not going to have to deal with, is Nick Chubb. But, look, it's the right move. I mean, if Nick Chubb is not all the way back, then obviously, you want to take your time with him. And, I think I was reading that, he still had some ways to go before, being activated. So, but yeah, he's going to miss the first 4 games. And Browns, they got the Cowboys on the schedule. Week 1, they got the Saints. Nope, not the Cowboys. One of the Browns schedule. Browns got the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Raiders. I mean, I think the Browns could go 3-1 in those games, and then Chubb comes back. Browns actually have a doable schedule, although it does get tough towards the end of the year. But early on, I think they could definitely, stack up some wins. First, 5 games of the season. But, yeah, I think they'll be able to get by. I mean, listen, look at what they did last year. You had 5 different starting quarterbacks. I mean, you had a ton of injuries, and they were, despite all that, they still won 11 games. So, but then also some other news. A familiar face returns to Kansas City. That's Juju Smith-Schuster. The Chiefs bring him back. I'm assuming it's just a 1-year deal. And he played an important role on the Chiefs back in 2022. He played well for them. Now, obviously, the Chiefs, they revamped the receiving core, and, Marquise Brown is out, so I think that also played a role. But I'm happy for him because New England just did not seem like it was the place for him. Last year, 260 receiving yards and a touchdown. In the previous season, in Kansas City, he had 933 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year, he played in 11 games. The year before that, he played in 16. So, and he knows the offense. I'm happy for him that he's going back there because, like I said, he had a good year with them. And it's a cheap deal. I mean, obviously, again, he's not going to be looked at as one of the top weapons because a couple of years ago he was, the top, at least the top wide receiver in that offense. But now, like I said, you got Marquise Brown who's going to come back at some point. You have Rashee Rice, you have Xavier Worthy. So, there's some competition in that receiving room. And we'll see how they fill out the rest of the receiving core. I mean, Justin Watson, I'm assuming will be there. But yeah, that's a I think a good move for the Chiefs and a good move for Juju as well. Even if he doesn't have like as much of a role in the offense as he did, a couple of years ago. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about the extensions, about the injury news, and, signings, in the comments. So, we're going to take our next break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Hard Knocks episode from last week. I'll just give you some of my thoughts, on Caleb Williams' performance in the preseason game against the Bengals, as well as some other things as well when we come back. So, and only, 2 more episodes. You got the one this Tuesday, tomorrow, and then next week. And then we move into the AFC North, which, that's gonna be fun. Seeing the in-season Hard Knocks, it's gonna be fun to watch, and I'm gonna make sure, to continue recapping the episodes. But yeah, so that is what we will do when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about the Hard Knocks episode from last week. We'll get into talking about Caleb Williams' performance. I know I talked about that, of course, last week, but, also some other news within that episode. The Bears tried to trade for Matthew Judon, and that would have been a big trade if the Bears were able to pull that off, because then you pair him up with Montez Sweat, and talking about the Bears defense last year, that was a unit that really improved, and adding Matthew Judon to that defense, I mean, that only would just add on to the hype of the Bears. And, the main thing, obviously, talking about this episode was just the preseason game against the Bengals. Because, it didn't get off to a great start. The Bears offense stalled, for the first few drives. And, obviously, when talking about the Bears, I think the Bears are going to be a good team this year, but there's going to be some growing pains. And I think you saw some of that with the preseason game against the Bengals. Like, there's going to be some there's going to be some lulls where, you're kind of going through it. There's drives where you're not really cashing in and you're going 3 and out. But then you see the final 2 drives, and that's the potential of this Bears team and Caleb Williams. Him being able to improvise, and, he's got a great arm. And we saw even some passes that were incomplete. You see the talent there. I think he's going to be better. He's going to be, well, right now, I at least think he's going to be better than Justin Fields. But I mean, some of those plays, I mean, the 2 signature plays from that game, the pass to Roma Dunze for 45 yards, whatever it was, and then the rushing touchdown, which was improvised. Followed his blocker into the end zone for a touchdown. This is what this Bears offense is capable capable of doing. And he's got a ton of weapons to work with. I mean, he had a passing touchdown that, got called back. So, his stats would have been even better. But actually, I don't know if that was on the drive that they scored a touchdown. But needless to say, I mean, that was an impressive play. He could have had a touchdown pass in that game. He's still looking for that, and he'll get it. But yeah, it's just you see the potential of this Bears team, and they're going to be one of the more intriguing teams to watch. Just because, I mean, and rightfully so, just because of the offseason that they've had, and I think I am buying into the hype, but they also got to go out there and prove it. They still got some question marks. And you got a rookie quarterback. So, you might not get results right away, but it's really all about improving throughout the season. Because they could, like I said, I've said this before, they could be a team that, they get off to a slow start, but you make a run in the second half. And that propels you into the playoffs, because that's pretty much what, almost happened for them last year. They played really well towards the end of the year. But, you lose that tough game against Cleveland, and, you lose a close game against the Packers. The Packers have had the Bears number, at least in memory. As much as, Bears fans are not going to want to admit it. But it's true, unfortunately, for them. But yeah, I mean, I just think this team is better equipped than it was last year. And now you get a full year of Montez Sweat wrecking havoc on defense. Jalen Johnson on that contract extension. The Bears are a team to look out for. So, we'll see what happens. But, I'm looking forward to see what they can do, what they can accomplish. Because it is... the hype is real. So, and I know, I think towards the beginning of the episode, Matt Eberflus was talking to Caleb Williams about, I think it was about the first preseason game against the Bills, and they're just kind of going through it, and Caleb Williams is talking about preparation and being ready for the game and things like that, because I mean that was his first game action in the NFL. And didn't really disappoint in his debut either, because he had some good throws, and the no-look pass to DeAndre Swift turned some heads. There is a lot to like about Caleb Williams, but there's some people that have their doubts, and you're always going to have that. So, but I don't know. I think the Bears, they might have found their guy. But we'll see. You got to now prove it in the regular season. And they got a very winnable game against the Titans week 1. And then you play the Texans week 2. And I know we saw that in the Hall of Fame game, but now we get the real deal. It's on Sunday night. So that'll definitely be fun. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Hard Knocks episode. What were your takeaways from it? And yeah, and then with the final preseason game, the Bears, they ended up winning against the Chiefs. They went 4-0 this preseason. They won 34-21 over the Chiefs. And the other 3 quarterbacks played. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up winning that. Those final 2 quarterback spots. Because I know Austin Reed's been a good story, but he might not make it. Also, they were using Velus Jones as running back, even though he's a receiver, and he had 13 carries for 111 yards and a touchdown. So, it'll be interesting to see how they use him in the offense. But, yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys think, though, about the Bears and their performance so far, and what to expect for them going into the regular season. But I did want to get into talking about Anthony Richardson, because I wanted to talk about his performance from Thursday, and it was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag because the Colts, they went right down the field on his first drive. They scored a touchdown, and it was great. But then it was bad after that. He threw a pick six, and it didn't go so well. Now, should we overreact and be like, oh, he's not going to be good this year? No. I think we're going to see more of what we saw on the first drive. But, this is a guy that hasn't played. He only played in, 3 games last year? I think we got to, pump the brakes a little bit. But, yeah, the pick six was ugly. That wasn't a good throw. But he's going to figure it out. Now, they get tested right away because they're taking on a Texans team that, knocked them out of the playoff contention in their building. And they're going to want to go out there and show that, that they belong to Colts. And, I hope we see a ton of Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud matchups for the next 10 years. So, we'll see what happens. But I also did want to bring that up because I know, I talked about mostly the Georgia Tech Florida State game, but I wanted to talk about Anthony Richardson's performance on Thursday as well. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think though about about his performance too. So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we'll talk about the Panthers. We'll talk about Bryce Young's performance because he made his preseason debut, and I wanted to get into that and discuss it. We'll get into all that, but we made it to the end. No more preseason. The real deal starts next week, so I'm really looking forward to that. You guys know me. I've been saying it for weeks now. It's been unbelievable. How fast the offseason went. But because now we're here, but it was a long time. And I'm just happy that we finally made it. So so that is what we will get into when we come back for our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Bryce Young, and did make his preseason debut. Didn't play the first two games, but did make an appearance in the final preseason matchup for the Panthers against the Bills, and didn't do that bad. He went. What did he go? He went 6 of 8. I'm gonna pull up his stats here. He went 6 of 8 for 70 yards and got a touchdown. And that was to Jordan Matthews, the former Philadelphia Eagle, who's now was a receiver for most of his career. Now he's converting into a tight end. So we'll see if he ends up making the team. But he had 3 receptions for 21 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, Bryce Young didn't do that bad. Again, it was, it's a preseason game, but you'll take it. And, look, the Panthers, they did a lot to try to put him in a much better situation. And this is a big year for him because last year just went horrible in a lot of aspects. The Panthers, they went out and got a new head coach who, did with Baker Mayfield last year and revitalized his career in Tampa. And, the offensive line is revamped, although it did struggle a little bit. They're hoping that Bryce Young could get better protection and also better weapons. You brought in Deontay Johnson. You drafted Xavier Legette. And I keep forgetting about Adam Thielen, but Adam Thielen was a 1,000-yard receiver last year for the Panthers. So he does have more weapons to work with this year. You would hope with all that, he's put in a better situation. And I think he is. It's just he's got to go out there and prove it. Now, a lot of people are still going to say that the Panthers aren't going to be very good. And I'm not really going to push back on that. I still think they're going to be a very good team myself. But that doesn't mean that we don't see improvement out of Bryce Young. I think he's going to have a better year than he did last year. Now, that's not really setting the bar high, but I just think, the Panthers, they did a lot to try to put him in a better situation. And we'll see if it pays off. But he didn't really, like I said, didn't really play first couple of preseason games. Dave Canales' intention for this preseason game, how long they were going to stay in the game was determined by the field. He basically said he hopes that the players at least get sweaty going into this game, and that was his comments. He cited the health of the whole unit as a reason for sitting the starters earlier in the previous 2 preseason games. Let's see if I actually have a direct quote from him. So yeah, on Thursday he basically said, like I said, the feel wanted players to get sweaty in the game. That's what his words. And Bryce Young said, "I trust in the coaching staff. They have our best interest at heart. Obviously, they manage the team. They know what they're doing. So for me and for us, we trust whatever it is that they want to do, and whatever coach's calls are, we'll be ready for that." So, it seemed like it didn't really bother him, whether he was going to play or not. Jack Plummer has taken the majority of preseason snaps. They had Jake Luton, but now he's on injured reserve. And Andy Dalton hasn't played in a preseason game. But Red Rifle's going to be the QB2. And did play a little bit last season. So, it is. It's going to be interesting how the Panthers season unfolds. like I said, I think they'll be. I think they're going to be a better team, but just I don't know. I don't think by that much. I still think they're going to struggle. But if Bryce Young goes out there and has a great year, Panthers fans got to be really happy about that. Because last year was rough. It was a rough year for him. And he kind of wants to turn the page on that. His teammates speak highly of him. Adam Thielen has. So, we'll see how it goes. But we have reached the end of the preseason. We're in the real deal now. So, I want to get into, in, the next, shows that we got, MVP odds and things like that. Division winners. Because I know I went over the schedules for teams, but now I want to get into, like, what I actually think. Like, who's making the playoffs, who, all that. We're going to go over that over the next week. And then before you know it, I got Ravens-Chiefs next Thursday. So, exciting stuff coming up, really. Watching, the post-game coverage of the preseason games from last night. They were talking about Ravens-Chiefs. And, I've talked about that several times. Earlier in the offseason, just, especially when the schedule first came out. So, yeah. We're really ramping up. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and looking forward to that. And next weekend's gonna be a crazy weekend. And like I said, I'll be at Giants Vikings. I'll get to see Sam Darnold play. See if Daniel Jones can prove the doubters wrong. I hope he does. At least for me when I'm there. And, yeah. And, I'll be making picks for the week. It's going to be, it's exciting stuff. Look, now that we're at this point, you could say it went fast, but it was a long off season. And, hopefully I start feeling better because, I appreciate you guys, hanging with me. I'm trying to overcome these, whatever I got going on here. But yeah, hopefully by next week we'll be good to go. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, with especially with the games being back, not just with the NFL but also college football. Like I'm gonna try to to focus in on them as well. But mostly the big matchups. Because I know I went over some of them for this weekend, but yeah, the big matchups from this week. From the weekend, upcoming. It's a lot. So, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, also, make sure to tune in to the other shows as well. We greatly appreciate that. And yeah, no, it's we made it. And I kept saying it for months that we're getting close, we're almost there, but we're here now. We're here. Just like what Mahomes said at Media Day, 49ers Nation, we're here. GSMC Sports Network viewers, we're here. I don't know. I just we made it. And let's get it going, Again, still got another week, but we're basically here. College football has started officially. So, then it's the craziness goes till February. So, buckle up. But yeah, no, like I said, appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to tune into all the other shows as well. Give the other shows some love. On fantasy and just sports in general, on basketball, wrestling. Make sure to tune in. Give everybody college football give the other shows some love, like I always say. So, yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.